The space around the planet Kepler 442b looked like a light show. Bright blue beams shot across the darkness between ships, and explosions bloomed like deadly flowers against the black sky. The Zephyrian Empire was winning another battle, just like they always did. Admiral Kethra stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the enemy ships retreat. The Helix Coalition had tried to defend this system, but their ships were too old and too slow. The battle had lasted exactly 43 minutes, which was longer than most fights these days. "Sir, the enemy is surrendering," said Commander Valtar, his second in command. "They're powering down their weapons and requesting mercy." Kethra nodded with satisfaction. This was how war worked in the galaxy. Ships would line up at a safe distance, shoot energy beams at each other until one side's shields failed, and then the losing side would surrender. It was clean, efficient, and civilized. The Zephyrian ships looked like beautiful crystals floating in space. Their hulls were smooth and elegant, designed to deflect energy weapons and look impressive during diplomatic meetings. Each ship was a work of art, built by master craftsmen who took pride in their creations. "How many ships did we lose?" asked Kethra. "None, sir. The enemy managed to damage 3 of our vessels, but nothing serious. The Coalition's weapons were too weak to penetrate our shields." Kethra smiled. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 17 star systems in the past 50 years, and they had never lost a single battle. Their technology was superior, their tactics were perfect, and their ships were the most advanced in the galaxy. Far below on the planet's surface, the human colony watched the battle with growing worry. The humans had been living on this world for 20 years, mining rare metals and growing food in underground farms. They called their settlement New Denver, after a city back on Earth. Jake Martinez stood in the colony's command center, his face grim as he watched the tactical display. The humans had been monitoring galactic politics for decades, but they had always stayed out of other people's wars. Now it looked like war was coming to them. "The Zephyrians are moving faster than we expected," said Dr. Lisa Rodriguez, the colony's chief scientist. She was a small woman with gray hair and worried eyes. "Our intelligence reports say they'll reach human space within 6 months." Jake rubbed his forehead. He was tired of being the one who had to make all the hard decisions. The human settlements were scattered across 12 different worlds, mostly small colonies focused on mining and farming. They didn't have a real military, just a few security guards and some old patrol ships. "What about the Earth Defense Force?" asked the security chief Don Kelly. He was a former soldier who had come to New Denver to escape his past, but now his military experience was suddenly valuable again. "They're too far away," Jake replied. "The nearest Earth ship is 3 months out, and it's just one old battleship with a few escort vessels. The USS Liberty was built for patrol duty, not major fleet battles." Don frowned. "One ship against the entire Zephyrian fleet? That's suicide." Jake nodded. The humans had been peaceful for generations, focusing on exploration and building new colonies rather than fighting wars. Their ships were designed for long-distance travel and industrial work, not combat. The idea of facing the Zephyrian war machine seemed impossible. "Maybe we should consider their offer," suggested Dr. Rodriguez. "The Zephyrians don't usually kill civilians. They just want us to join their empire and pay taxes." "And give up our freedom," Don said angrily. "I didn't come all this way to live." Under alien rule, Jake understood both sides. The practical choice was to surrender and hope the Zephyrians would be merciful. But something in his gut rebelled against the idea of giving up without a fight, unknown to the colonists. Captain Ryan Mitchell of the USS Liberty had been monitoring the situation from the edge of the star system. His ship was indeed old, built 30 years ago when humanity was still worried about alien invasions. But it had been extensively modified over the years, and it carried weapons that no one in the galaxy had ever seen before. The Liberty didn't look like the elegant Zephyrian ships or the sleek vessels used by other galactic powers. It was a massive wedge of gray metal and ceramic armor, covered in weapon mounts and sensor arrays. It looked more like a flying fortress than a spaceship. Captain Mitchell was a quiet man in his 50s, with gray hair and cold blue eyes. He had spent his entire career preparing for a war that everyone hoped would never come. Now it looked like his time had finally arrived. "Sir, we're receiving reports from the human colonies," said Communications Officer Amy Turner. "The Zephyrians are demanding surrender from all human settlements," Mitchell nodded slowly. He had been expecting this moment for years. The galaxy was full of predators, and eventually one of them would decide that humanity looked like easy. "Pray, what's our status?" he asked. "All systems are operational, sir," reported Chief Engineer Bobby Martinez. "The ship is ready for combat." Mitchell looked at the tactical display showing the Zephyrian fleet. 18 ships, all armed with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Against any other opponent, it would be a massacre. But the Zephyrians had never fought humans before. "Sir, the colonists are asking for instructions," said Turner. "They want to know if they should surrender?" Mitchell considered this. "The smart thing to do would be to evacuate the colonies and retreat to Earth. The Liberty was powerful, but it was still just one ship against an entire fleet. Any rational person would call this hopeless, but humans had never been entirely rational when it came to protecting their own. "Tell them to hold tight," Mitchell said. "The cavalry is coming." Back on New Denver, Jake received the message from the Liberty with mixed feelings. Part of him was relieved that help was coming, but part of him was terrified of what would happen when the shooting started. "One ship," Don said, shaking his head. "I've seen the intelligence reports on Zephyrian military capabilities. They have quantum disruptors, particle shields, and hyperspace jammers. What can one human ship do against all that?" Jake didn't have an answer. The humans had always been the underdogs in galactic politics, surviving through diplomacy and staying out of other people's fights. Now they were about to face the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Maybe our ship has some kind of secret weapon," suggested Dr. Rodriguez hopefully. Dan laughed bitterly. "Lady, this isn't a movie. Secret weapons don't exist in real life. The Liberty is just an old patrol ship with a crew of 800 people. The Zephyrians have 18 ships with a combined crew of over 5,000. But as the hours passed and the Zephyrian fleet moved closer to human space, something strange began to happen. Reports came in from other human colonies, all saying the same thing. The Earth Defense Force was mobilizing, and more ships were heading toward the border. The thing was, they weren't military ships. They were converted cargo haulers, mining vessels, and colony transports. Ships that had been designed for peaceful purposes, but which were now being fitted with weapons and armor. "It's like they're turning the entire merchant fleet into a navy," observed Dr. Rodriguez. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He was beginning to understand what the humans were planning, and it terrified him. This wasn't going to be a limited military action or a diplomatic solution. This was going to be total war. The Zephyrians thought they understood war. They had spent centuries perfecting the art of civilized combat, with its rules and limitations and elegant tactics. But they were about to encounter something that the galaxy had never seen before. They were about to meet humanity unleashed. 3 weeks later, the Zephyrian fleet arrived at the edge of human space. Admiral Kethra stood on his bridge, looking at the scanner readings with mild interest. The human settlements showed no signs of military preparation. Their ships looked like civilian vessels with basic defensive systems. "This will be our easiest conquest yet," said Commander Veltar, studying the tactical display. "These humans barely have any weapons at all. Most of their ships are cargo haulers and mining equipment." Kethra nodded in agreement. The humans had 12 colonies spread across 6 star systems, but their total military force seemed to consist of a few patrol ships and some armed transports. It was almost disappointing. "Sir, we're detecting about 30 human vessels in the outer system," reported the sensor operator. "They appear to be evacuating civilians." Let them run," Kethra said with a wave of his hand. "We're not here to slaughter innocents. We'll give them the standard surrender offer." The Admiral activated the communication system and began broadcasting on all frequencies. His message was the same one the Zephyrian Empire had used for 50 years of conquest. Attention human settlements. This is Admiral Kethra of the Zephyrian Empire. Your territory now falls under our protection. Surrender peacefully, and you will be treated as valued members of our civilization. Resist, and you will face the full might of our fleet. The response came from New Denver, transmitted by Colony Administrator Jake Martinez. His voice was calm, but firm. This is Jake Martinez representing all human colonies in this sector. We appreciate your offer, but we must decline. These worlds are under the protection of the Earth Defense Force. We ask that you respect our territory and withdraw peacefully. Kethra laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Protection? We see no military vessels in your system. Are you expecting us to be frightened by mining ships and cargo haulers? Our protection is on the way, Jake replied. You have 24 hours to leave human space. After that, we cannot guarantee your safety. The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian bridge crew in stunned silence. Commander Veltar was the first to speak. Sir, they actually believe they can resist us. 18 ships against whatever small force they can muster. Kethra shook his head in amazement. Perhaps it's a cultural thing. Some primitive species have strange ideas about honor and territory. The Admiral decided to send a message by disabling one of the human orbital stations. A single pulse from a quantum disruptor would knock out its power systems without killing anyone. It would show the humans that resistance was futile. The attack proceeded exactly as planned. The mining platform's shields flickered and died, its lights going dark as the system shut down. The Zephyrians waited for the inevitable surrender message. Instead, Jake Martinez's voice came over the communications again, and this time there was steel in his tone. You have just committed an act of war against human civilians. The Earth Defense Force has been notified. You now have 24 hours to withdraw from human space or face the consequences. Kethra stared at the communications panel in disbelief. The humans actually seemed to think their single ship could challenge the might of the Zephyrian Empire. It was either incredible bravery or complete insanity. Run another sensor sweep, he ordered. Check for hidden ships or weapons platforms. The sensors found nothing except empty space and the distant signatures of fleeing civilian vessels. Number. Massive fleet, no secret weapons, no alien allies coming to help. Just the promise of one human battleship somewhere in the void. Sir, reported the tactical officer, we're detecting a hyperspace signature approaching from the inner system. Single contact, moving at standard cruise speed. Kethra straightened in his command chair. Finally, the mysterious Earth Defense Force was showing itself. He was genuinely curious to see what these humans considered a battleship. All ships assume battle formation. Activate shields and charge weapons. Let's give our guests a proper welcome. The Zephyrian fleet arranged itself in their standard attack pattern. 18 ships formed a perfect geometric formation, their crystal hulls gleaming in the starlight. Their quantum disruptors hummed with power, ready to deliver precise, devastating attacks. The hyperspace signature grew stronger, and then the human vessel dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Every sensor in the Zephyrian fleet immediately locked onto the new arrival. What they saw made no sense at all. The human ship was enormous, easily twice the size of the Zephyrian flagship, but it looked nothing like any warship in the galaxy. Where Zephyrian vessels were elegant curves of crystal and metal, this thing was a brutal wedge of gray armor plating. It bristled with weapon mounts and sensor arrays, looking more like a flying fortress than a spaceship. Sir, the sensor operator said in a puzzled voice, I'm reading massive armor plating across the entire hull. At least 3 meters thick in some places. 3 meters? Veltar repeated. That's impossible. No ship could maneuver with that much dead weight. But the human ship was moving, albeit slowly. It didn't dart and weave like Zephyrian vessels. Instead, it moved with the steady, inexorable pace of something that didn't need to dodge attacks. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human ship, reported the communications officer. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing a human male in his 50s. He wore a simple military uniform and had the cold, calculating eyes of a professional soldier. When he spoke, his voice was completely calm. "This is Captain Ryan Mitchell of the USS Liberty. You have attacked human civilians and violated our territorial space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Kethra found himself staring at the human captain. There was something unsettling about the man's complete lack of fear. He was outnumbered 18-1, facing the most advanced fleet in the galaxy, and he seemed perfectly confident. "Captain Mitchell, surely you can see that resistance is pointless. We have overwhelming superiority in numbers and technology. Surrender now, and we will treat you with honor." The human captain's smile was thin and cold. "Admiral, you're about to learn something that the galaxy seems to have forgotten. There's a difference between your kind of warfare and ours." "And what difference is that?" "You fight wars to win territory and resources. We fight wars to destroy our enemies completely." The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian bridge in uncomfortable silence. There had been something in the human's tone that suggested this wasn't empty boasting. "Sir," the tactical officer said nervously, "should we try to negotiate further?" Kethra shook his head. "No, they've made their choice. All ships prepare for combat. Target the human vessel and prepare to fire on my command." The Zephyrian fleet began their standard approach, moving into optimal firing range with mathematical precision. Their quantum disruptors charged to full power, preparing to overwhelm the human ship's defenses with concentrated firepower. But as they moved closer, something strange happened. The human ship didn't retreat to maintain distance like every other vessel in the galaxy. Instead, it began accelerating directly toward the Zephyrian formation. "Sir," the helmsman said in alarm, "the human ship is closing at maximum speed. They're not trying to maintain firing range." Kethra watched in growing amazement as the USS Liberty bore down on his fleet like a charging animal. No civilized species fought this way. Space combat was supposed to be conducted at long range with careful positioning and precise targeting. "All ships, open fire," he commanded. 18 quantum disruptors fired simultaneously, sending beams of concentrated energy toward the approaching human vessel. The weapons struck the Liberty's forward shields and armor, creating brilliant flashes of light. The human ship kept coming. "Direct hits across the forward section," reported the tactical officer. "But sir, their armor is absorbing most of the damage. I'm reading only superficial burns." Kethra felt a chill of fear. The Liberty was now close enough that he could see details of its hull construction. The entire forward section was covered in overlapping plates of some kind of advanced composite material. It looked like the humans had designed their ship specifically to absorb punishment. "Keep firing," he ordered. "Concentrate all weapons on their forward shields." But the USS Liberty was almost on top of them now, and suddenly dozens of weapon ports opened along its flanks. What emerged wasn't the elegant energy beams that characterize galactic warfare, but something far more primitive and terrifying. Solid projectiles began streaming from the human ship. Chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic fields. The Zephyrians had no defense against such crude, brutal weapons. The first salvo struck the cruiser Starlight Harmony, and the beautiful crystal ship simply came apart. Its elegant hull, designed to deflect energy weapons, shattered like glass under the kinetic bombardment. "Impossible," Kethra whispered, watching the ship die. "No one fights like this." No one, but the humans did, and they were just getting started. The USS Liberty tore through the Zephyrian formation like a wild animal set loose among sheep. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood calmly on his bridge, watching the tactical display as his ship's weapons systematically destroyed everything in their path. "Target the cruiser on our port side," he ordered Weapons Officer Greg Thompson. "Full spread, kinetic penetrators." "Aye, sir, firing now." The Liberty's portside guns spoke with thunder. Dozens of metal slugs, each weighing several tons, shot out at incredible speed. They struck the Zephyrian cruiser Crystal Dawn in a matter of seconds. Punching completely through its hull from one side to the other, The elegant alien ship broke apart like a toy, its beautiful crystal structure no match for the brutal physics of high-velocity impact. Atmosphere and debris sprayed into space as the vessel died. 3 ships down, reported Thompson with grim satisfaction. 15 targets remaining. Admiral Kethra watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart by weapons. That seemed to come from some primitive nightmare. The human ship moved through space like a fortress with engines, absorbing every shot fired at it while dealing death with mechanical precision. "Fall back!" He screamed into his communications. "All ships, retreat to maximum range." But the Liberty wasn't finished with them yet. As the surviving Zephyrian vessels tried to escape, the human battleship revealed its most terrible weapon. A massive gun that ran the entire length of the ship began to charge with a sound like approaching thunder. "Sir," the sensor operator said in a trembling voice, "the human ship is powering up some kind of spinal mount weapon. Energy readings are off the scale." Kethra felt his blood turn cold. "Evasive maneuvers, all power to engines." The USS Liberty's main railgun fired with a flash that lit up half the star system. The projectile it launched was the size of a small shuttle, accelerated to 90% of light speed by magnetic coils that ran the entire length of the ship. The slug struck the Zephyrian destroyer Moon's Grace directly amidships. The ship simply vanished in a ball of superheated plasma as the kinetic energy converted to heat in an instant. The shock wave from the explosion damaged 2 nearby vessels. "Impossible," Kethra whispered. "No ship can mount a weapon that powerful. The energy requirements alone would drain their entire power grid." But the Liberty was still moving, still firing its smaller weapons at anything within range. The human ship seemed to have an endless supply of ammunition and the power to use it all. Commander Veltar was frantically working at his console, trying to coordinate the retreat. "Sir, we've lost 7 ships in 4 minutes. The survivors are scattered and requesting immediate withdrawal." Kethra wanted to retreat, but his pride as a Zephyrian officer wouldn't let him run from a single enemy ship. "Reform the line. Concentrate. All fire on their engines. If we can disable their propulsion, we can wear them down." It was a desperate plan, but it was all he had left. The remaining 11 Zephyrian ships formed up at maximum range and began firing everything they had at the Liberty's rear section. The quantum disruptors struck the human ship's engine housing, creating brilliant explosions across its armored hull. For a moment, Kethra thought they might actually damage something important. Then the Liberty turned toward them again, and he realized their weapons had barely scratched the paint. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, "our energy weapons aren't penetrating their armor. They've got some kind of composite plating that disperses the energy on impact." Captain Mitchell listened to the damage reports from his crew with calm professionalism. "Damage to the rear section?" he asked Chief Engineer Bobby Martinez. "Minor scoring on the outer hull plating," Martinez replied. "Some of their shots got through to the secondary armor, but nothing serious. We're still at 95%. "Combat effectiveness?" Mitchell nodded. The Liberty had been designed to fight outnumbered against technologically superior opponents. Its armor was layered ceramic and metal composite, designed to absorb and disperse energy weapons while protecting the vital systems inside. "Sir," called Communications Officer Amy Turner, "the enemy is trying to jam our sensors. Let them try. Target the nearest cruiser and give them another taste of human hospitality." The Liberty's weapons opened fire again, sending streams of kinetic projectiles toward the Zephyrian formation. The aliens had learned to fear the human ship's guns, and they scattered like startled birds when the metal rain began to fall. But space was 3-dimensional, and the Liberty had weapons pointing in every direction. As the Zephyrians tried to escape, they found themselves caught in crossfire from multiple gun mounts. The cruiser Eternal Wisdom took 14 direct hits and broke apart at the crew section. The destroyer Silver Song lost its main engines and began spinning helplessly through space. Another vessel, the Beautiful Light, simply exploded when a kinetic round struck its main reactor. "This is madness," Veltar said, staring at the tactical display. "They're fighting like barbarians. Where are the rules of engagement? Where is the honor in combat? Kethra finally understood what they were facing. The humans didn't fight according to galactic convention because they had never learned. Galactic convention. They fought to kill, pure and simple. All ships, he broadcast on the emergency frequency, immediate retreat. Break off engagement and head for the hyperspace jump point. The surviving Zephyrian vessels turned and ran, their elegant formations completely abandoned in favor of desperate escape. Some of them were damaged and limping, trailing atmosphere and debris as they fled. The Liberty could have pursued them and finished the job, but Captain Mitchell had other priorities. Let them go, he told his crew. We've made our point. Sir, Turner called out, we're receiving transmissions from the human colonies. They want to know if the threat has been eliminated. Mitchell looked at the tactical display, counting the debris fields where Zephyrian ships had died. 12 vessels destroyed in less than 10 minutes, with the survivors fleeing in panic. Tell them the immediate danger is over. We'll remain on station until the situation stabilizes. On New Denver, Jake Martinez stared at the battle display in complete amazement. The fight had been over almost before it began, with the human battleship cutting through the enemy fleet like a hot knife through butter. How is this possible? Asked Dr. Lisa Rodriguez. The Zephyrians had 18 ships, all with advanced technology. Security Chief Don Kelly was grinning like a maniac. They had advanced technology for their kind of fighting. But humans never learned to fight fair. We build ships to kill other ships, not to look pretty while doing it. The truth was starting to sink in across the human colonies. The Earth defense force hadn't just won a battle, they had completely destroyed the enemy's ability to fight. And they had done it with a single ship. Sir, one of Jake's assistants said, we're getting reports from other human settlements. More Earth ships are arriving in nearby systems. Jake nodded slowly. The USS Liberty wasn't alone after all. The Earth Defense Force was moving ships into position throughout human space, and they all seemed to be built along the same brutal, efficient lines. News of the battle spread quickly through galactic communication networks. The Zephyrian Empire, faced with an enemy that fought by completely different rules, found itself in an impossible situation. Their entire military doctrine was based on technological superiority and precise tactics, but the humans had shown that sometimes crude violence could overcome sophistication. Within hours, other species began to take notice. The Helix Coalition, recently conquered by the Zephyrians, started asking questions about human military capabilities. If these newcomers could stand up to the Empire's fleet, perhaps resistance was possible after all. The galactic balance of power was shifting. And it was all because of one human ship and its crew of 800. The USS Liberty had done more than win a battle. It had announced to the galaxy that humanity was done being ignored. The Zephyrians thought they understood war, with their elegant ships and civilized tactics. But they had just learned that humans brought something to the galaxy that no other species possessed, the absolute willingness to destroy their enemies completely, no matter what the cost. The age of polite warfare was over. The humans had arrived, and they played by their own rules. News of the battle at New Denver spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within 3 days, every major species had heard about the human battleship that destroyed 12 Zephyrian vessels in 10 minutes. The story grew with each telling, but the basic facts remained the same. Humanity had weapons that no one understood. Admiral Kethra sat in his damaged flagship, watching repair crews try to fix the holes in his ship's hull. The Eternal Dawn had survived the battle, but barely. Half his fleet was gone, and the other half was too damaged to fight effectively. Sir, said Commander Veltar, we're receiving orders from High Command. They want a full report on human military capabilities. Kethra laughed bitterly. What should I tell them? That these humans fight like wild animals? That their ships are built like flying fortresses? That they don't care about the rules of civilized warfare? The truth was that Kethra didn't understand what had happened. The humans had used weapons that seemed almost primitive chunks of metal fired by magnetic accelerators. But those simple weapons had torn through Zephyrian Shields and armor like they were made of paper? Sir, intelligence wants to know how many human ships we can expect to face. I don't know, Kethra admitted. But if they have more ships like that battleship, we're in serious trouble. Unknown to the Zephyrians, Captain Ryan Mitchell was asking himself the same question. The USS Liberty was powerful, but it was just one ship. If the Zephyrian Empire decided to send their entire fleet against human space, even the Liberty couldn't stop them. Captain, said Communications Officer Amy Turner, we're receiving a priority message from Earth Command. They want a status report, Mitchell nodded. Put Admiral Chen through. The main screen showed an elderly Chinese woman in a crisp military uniform. Admiral Susan Chun was the head of the Earth Defense Force, and she looked worried. Captain Mitchell, congratulations on your victory. But we need to talk about what comes next. Yes, ma'am. The Zephyrians will be back, probably with reinforcements. That's what we're afraid of. How long do you think we have? Mitchell considered the question. Based on their fleet movements, I'd say 6 weeks at most. They'll want to test our capabilities before committing to a major offensive. Admiral Chun nodded grimly. Then we need to move fast. The Council has approved Operation Iron Wall. We're converting every available ship to military specification. Mitchell felt a chill. Operation Iron Wall was the Earth Defense Force's emergency plan for total war. It meant turning humanity's entire industrial capacity toward building weapons and warships. Ma'am, are we sure that's necessary? Maybe we can negotiate with the Zephyrians. Captain, our intelligence suggests that the Zephyrian Empire sees us as a threat to their expansion. They won't stop until we're conquered or destroyed. We have no choice but to fight. The transmission ended, leaving Mitchell alone with his thoughts. He had spent his career preparing for this moment, but now that it was here, he felt the weight of responsibility. The decisions made in the next few weeks would determine humanity's survival. Across human space, the mobilization had already begun. On Earth, massive shipyards that have been building cargo vessels and colony ships were retooling to produce warships. The designs were based on the USS Liberty, heavily armored, heavily armed, and built to survive in combat. The conversion wasn't just happening on Earth. Every human colony with industrial capacity was turning their facilities toward military production. Mining ships were being fitted with kinetic weapons. Cargo haulers were getting armor plating and missile launchers. Even civilian transports were being modified to carry troops and supplies. Jake Martinez watched from New Denver as the first converted ships arrived in the system. They didn't look like traditional warships, but they bristled with weapons and moved with the steady confidence of vessels built for war. It's incredible, said Dr. Lisa Rodriguez, watching a former mining ship test its new railguns. They've turned our entire merchant fleet into a navy. Security Chief Don Kelly nodded approvingly. That's the human way. When we decide to fight, we fight with everything we have. The transformation was happening faster than anyone thought possible. Within 2 weeks, humanity had doubled the size of its military fleet. Within a month, they had tripled it. The ships weren't as advanced as the USS Liberty, but they were numerous, and they were armed with the same brutal weapons that had devastated the Zephyrian fleet. The Helix Coalition was the first to take notice. Their leaders had been planning a rebellion against Zephyrian rule, but they lacked the military strength to succeed. The human victory changed everything. Coalition Admiral Helen Wright sent a secret message to Captain Mitchell, requesting a meeting. The message was simple: we want to learn how you fight. The meeting took place on a neutral space station, with representatives from multiple species attending. Captain Mitchell, now promoted to admiral, found himself in the unfamiliar position of being treated like a military genius. Admiral Mitchell, said Helen Wright, our analysis of your battle tactics shows that you've revolutionized space combat. We'd like to propose an alliance. Mitchell was cautious. What kind of alliance? Military cooperation against the Zephyrian Empire. We provide intelligence and logistics support. You provide military expertise and firepower. It was a tempting offer, but Mitchell had his orders. I'll need to consult with Earth Command. But I can tell you that humanity isn't interested in conquest. We just want to be left alone. That's all we want too, Wright replied. The Zephyrians have been expanding for 50 years, conquering anyone who can't defend themselves. Maybe it's time someone taught them that aggression has consequences. The meeting was interrupted by urgent news from the border systems. Zephyrian reconnaissance ships had been spotted moving through coalition space, apparently heading toward human territory. They're coming back, Wright said grimly. Our intelligence suggests they're massing a much larger fleet this time, Mitchell nodded. He had expected this. The Zephyrians couldn't allow the defeat at New Denver to go unanswered. Their entire empire was built on the image of invincibility. How large a fleet? He asked. At least 50 ships, possibly more. They're bringing everything they have in this sector? Mitchell did the math in his head. 50 Zephyrian ships against. The current human fleet would be a difficult fight, even with their superior weapons. The USS Liberty was powerful, but it couldn't be everywhere at once. Admiral, Wright continued, there's something else. Other species are watching this conflict very carefully. If humanity can defeat the Zephyrian Empire, it will change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. Mitchell understood the implications. This wasn't just about human survival anymore. It was about whether the galaxy would continue to be dominated by predatory empires, or whether smaller species could defend themselves. I'll recommend the alliance to Earth Command, he said finally. But I want it clear that we fight our own way. No interference with human military doctrine. Wright smiled. Admiral, after seeing what your doctrine can accomplish, we wouldn't dream of interfering. As the meeting broke up, Mitchell felt the weight of history on his shoulders. The coming battle would determine not just humanity's fate, but the future of galactic civilization itself. The Zephyrians were gathering their strength for a massive assault, but they still didn't understand what they were facing. Humanity wasn't just defending territory, they were defending their right to exist. As a free species, and when humans fought for their freedom, they fought with a ferocity that the galaxy had never seen before. 6 months after the battle at New Denver, the galaxy was a different place. The Zephyrian Empire, once the most feared military force in the Outer Rim, found itself facing rebellions on multiple fronts. Species that had been conquered years ago were suddenly finding the courage to fight back. Admiral Kethra stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Cosmic Victory, watching the largest fleet in Zephyrian history prepare for battle. 63 ships spread out across space, their crystal hulls gleaming in the light of the system's twin suns. This time, there would be no mistakes. Sir, reported Commander Veltar, all ships report ready for combat. The fleet is in perfect formation. Kethra nodded with satisfaction. The High Command had given him everything he asked for, their most advanced ships, their best crews, and enough firepower to destroy a dozen human colonies. This time, the humans would learn the price of defying the Empire. Sir, we're detecting hyperspace signatures ahead. Multiple contacts coming out of faster-than-light travel. Kethra smiled coldly. The humans are finally showing themselves. How many ships? Counting now, sir. I'm reading 15, 20, 25 contacts. Still more arriving. The smile faded from Kethra's face as the human fleet continued to grow. 30 ships, then 40, then 50. By the time the last vessel dropped out of hyperspace, the humans had assembled a fleet of 67 ships, but these weren't elegant vessels like the Zephyrian fleet. They looked like a collection of industrial equipment that had somehow learned to fly. Former cargo ships bristled with weapon mounts. Mining vessels carried armor plating that made them look like flying fortresses. Even civilian transports had been fitted with missile launchers and kinetic guns. At the center of the human formation sat the USS Liberty, looking as brutal and efficient as ever. Admiral Ryan Mitchell stood on its bridge, studying the tactical display with calm professionalism. His fleet was a mix of converted civilian ships and new warships built specifically for this fight. Admiral, called Communications Officer Amy Turner, the Zephyrian flagship is broadcasting on all frequencies. Put it through. Kethra's image appeared on the main screen, his alien features twisted with anger. Admiral Mitchell, you have interfered with the natural order of the galaxy for the last time. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. Mitchell's response was delivered in the same flat, emotionless tone he had used 6 months ago. Admiral Kethra, you had your chance to leave human space peacefully. Now you're going to learn why that was your only smart option. You cannot defeat us this time, human. We have superior numbers and technology. Your industrial ships are no match for purpose-built warships. We'll see about that. The transmission ended, and both fleets began maneuvering for battle. But where the Zephyrians moved with mathematical precision, maintaining perfect formations and optimal firing angles, the human fleet moved like a pack of predators. The converted ships spread out in loose groups, using their different capabilities to create overlapping fields of fire. The former mining vessels, with their heavy armor and powerful engines, moved to the front. The converted cargo ships, carrying long-range missiles, stayed in the back. The new warships, built along the same lines as the Liberty, formed the core of the formation. All ships, Mitchell broadcast to his fleet, remember your training. We don't fight to look pretty or follow rules, we fight to win. The battle began when the Zephyrian fleet opened fire at maximum range. 63 quantum disruptors fired simultaneously, sending beams of concentrated energy toward the human formation. The elegant light show lit up space like a deadly aurora. The humans absorbed the attack with grim determination. Their heavy armor and overlapping shields took the punishment and kept coming. Some ships were damaged, but none were destroyed. Then the human fleet reached effective range, and hell erupted across the battlefield. The converted mining ships opened fire first, their industrial drilling equipment modified into kinetic cannons. Streams of metal projectiles shot across space at incredible speeds, striking Zephyrian ships with the force of small meteors. The cargo haulers launched their missiles, hundreds of them, each one seeking a different target. The Zephyrians had never faced this kind of mass bombardment, and their point defense systems were quickly overwhelmed. The new human warships added their voices to the chorus of destruction, their railguns sending projectiles that could punch through anything the Zephyrians could build. Impossible, Kethra whispered, watching his ships die. How can they have so much firepower? The answer was simple. Humans built weapons the way they built everything else, efficiently and in large quantities. Where the Zephyrians had a few powerful weapons per ship, the humans had dozens of smaller ones. Where the Zephyrians built for elegance, the humans built for results. The battle lasted 3 hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The human fleet tore through the Zephyrian formation like a hurricane, destroying everything in their path. Ships that had taken years to build were reduced to scrap metal in minutes. Admiral Kethra watched his fleet die around him, finally understanding what the humans had been trying to tell the galaxy. This wasn't about honor or glory or territorial expansion. This was about survival, and humans were very good at surviving. Sir, Veltar said quietly, we've lost 47 ships. The survivors are requesting permission to retreat. Kethra looked at the tactical display, seeing the scattered remnants of what had been the Empire's finest fleet. The humans were still coming, their damaged ships held together by determination and welding. All ships retreat, he said finally. Signal the High Command. Tell them that we cannot defeat these humans. The surviving Zephyrian vessels fled, leaving the battlefield to the humans. Admiral Mitchell watched them go, feeling no satisfaction in the victory. Too many good people had died today, on both sides. Sir, Turner called out, we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Other species are asking about alliance agreements. Mitchell nodded. The news of this battle would spread even faster than the first one. The Zephyrian Empire's aura of invincibility was broken forever. Over the following months, the galactic political map was redrawn. The Helix Coalition declared independence from Zephyrian rule. Other conquered species followed suit. The Empire, faced with rebellions everywhere and unable to defeat the human fleet, began negotiating for peace. The USS Liberty became a symbol of this new era. patrolling the trade routes and ensuring that aggressive species understood the new rules. The galaxy's predators had learned that some prey fought back. Jake Martinez stood on the observation deck of New Denver's new orbital station, watching human and coalition ships work together to build a better future. The mining operation had become a major trading hub, with species from across the galaxy coming to do business. "Hard to believe it all started with one ship," said Dr. Lisa Rodriguez, joining him at the window. Jake smiled. "One ship with the right crew at the right time. Sometimes that's all it takes to change everything." The truth was that humanity had changed the galaxy forever. Not through conquest or domination, but by proving that freedom was worth fighting for. The Zephyrians and others like them now knew that expansion came with risks. The age of easy conquest was over. In its place was a new era where smaller species could defend themselves, where alliance mattered more than individual strength, and where aggressors had to think twice before attacking their neighbors. The humans had kept their promise. They wanted only to be left alone. But they had also proven that anyone who threatened their way of life would face consequences that the galaxy had never imagined. The USS Liberty continued its patrols, a reminder that sometimes the best way to keep peace was to be ready for war.